Greetings, beloved listeners to Spirit and Sexuality, the space for unfiltered, raw conversations around the spiritual, the sexual, the emotional, and most importantly, the inspirational healing journeys of going from trauma to truth, from shame to empowerment. There are no taboos or judgments here as we unearth the layers and stories that are often hidden away in the shadows of silence, or worse, shame. This is not a space for traumatic stories. It's a place to learn about the intricate connections between childhood trauma and our intimate relationships with others, but most importantly, with ourselves. And I'm your host, Natasha Joy. Today is the first episode of Spirit and Sexuality, and I thought that I would share my own story first of how and why I came to conscious sacred sexuality. Joining me today is Jami Mahmood, a well-known Pakistani filmmaker whose films More and 021 received critical acclaim. So Jami has been my motivation and inspiration to not only express my own truth publicly about my experience of sexual misconduct in Pakistan, but he has also been the catalyst for me to start this podcast. So it only made sense to have you on the show for the first episode to join me today. Hello, Jami. Thank you for joining the show, Jami, and welcome to Spirit and Sexuality.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for having me. And it's very important that we start the program with you. Actually, that is the key in my life. How few people changed my life when I needed an anchor, when I came out for myself and for other women. A lot of people just vanished in few years, and you were the only one still holding and still taking charge and doing it actively. That is the key. I feel therapy is not the only solution. Contacting people, holding you, hugging you every day, talking to you, and I'm not buttering it up. For 4 years, Natasha has kept up with you can say, my deepest traumas, and she would call me up. She would tell me how to breathe, how to relax. It was a weekly, monthly thing. I would contact her and Natasha, I'm finished. And Natasha would come online and say, okay, Jami, let's do this. I'm here. So this is very important what you're doing, and this is healing trauma. That is the real way. A lot of people talk. You go on YouTube, I've gone to like so many therapists and they just talk. They don't mean it. There's no connection actually. They'll look at the watch and the clock.
I greatly honor and respect you and thank you. I think we found alignment because we both had similar experiences and we were willing and able, and we needed to stand up in our truth. And so today we're going to share my story going from trauma to truth. So just for the audiences and the listeners to get a little bit of background, it all started with the letter of a woman who was sexually assaulted in Pakistan by a person from the Pakistani media industry. His name we're not going to disclose because there is a legal battle being fought in Pakistan at the moment. So just with reference to that story, I basically had gotten involved in the case because I had an experience with this alleged assaulter. And well, he's not alleged. It was an assault in my case. Or I could stand up and actually give my view of what his character was. And because there were a lot of people fighting and saying, oh no, the women don't believe the women. But my whole point was, no, those women probably have had something happen to them, because this very same person, I have seen how he has behaved with me. I don't think he can be trusted, or his word can be trusted. It was a long time ago. I think at the time when 5 years ago, when we were talking about this case publicly, I had made a statement on Facebook, and I had come out on Facebook with what happened, and I received a lot of backlash from it. It took me a lot of courage to share my experience. So, what was my experience? We were filming a TV commercial in Thar Desert, and I was his assistant director, and we had been filming all day, and he had just been in cancer recovery. So I could see how he was manipulating situations using his, so-called cancer, and to basically, find a sweet spot in people's heart. So we were filming and had wrapped up, and we were traveling back to Karachi in this coaster bus. He slowly started leaning into me and he put his head on my shoulder and pretended that he wanted to rest because he was really tired. Again, coughing and spluttering, or because it was sandy and really dusty, and so he was pretending to now like completely fall apart in the bus. He'd been okay all through the day. I felt something touch my breast, and I looked at him, and I was at first a bit in shock, like the first moment something happens, you've got to like double check it. Is it my imagination? Was that an accident, or was that deliberate? The fear inside of me, like, if I stood up and said something, are all these boys going to look at me weird just because you might be paying everybody on this bus? And he pretended like it was, nothing. There was nothing. He wasn't trying to do anything, and that I was just exaggerating or whatever. I began to feel really uncomfortable because there was a lot of boys on the bus, and so there was this shame. And so I struggled a little bit, tried to adjust my seat. He kept pushing more and more into me. Now I'm sitting next to the window, pretending that he was half asleep, but he wasn't. I could tell he wasn't asleep. And then physically his hand touched my breast. And it was totally deliberate. And that's when I actually got angry at him and said, "Hey, stop it. I want you to stop it." And he mumbled and muttered. And again, in his, whole sick charade, sort of really comprehend. No, I don't think he understands or understood boundaries at all. His work, his office studio was in his home, and his family lived there. So he had his wife, and he had a daughter, and he had a son, and they were there, and they would be coming in and going out. And I think I went to his studio twice, once either to pick up some stuff or to pick him up, or in the middle of me being there, and the doors open and his son's walking in and out. He starts changing his clothes. So he takes his pants off, drops his pants, and he's wearing like shorts or boxers or something underneath. But like, who does that in a meeting? If you're a professional, if you don't have ill intentions, and you've got like self-respect, why would you start changing your clothes in a meeting?
This is crazy. My God.
That's not okay.
Absolutely, that's not okay. Actually, it's very, very.
And I don't care if he says that, but my family was there. I wasn't going to do anything. That still is not okay. Did you ask me if you want to change if I'm okay for you to change your clothes in front of me? I, at the time, didn't obviously say much to anyone except for the few people who were working with me, and I told them that I'm really annoyed at his behavior, and then I had I don't think it lasted very long. I think after that there was only a week, or within a week we had a big falling out. I saw that he had no integrity in his payments. He had no integrity in his contracts and how he kept his word and commitment. He wasn't a man of his word. I would see him say, "Oh, I'm really sick today. Tell so and so I can't come today because I'm really sick." But on the other hand, he would be out filming a whole different commercial out of contract, which he was not supposed to be doing.
Mm.
And there was a lot of anger inside of me, there was a lot of anger for him and for me. I was angry at myself. Like, why didn't you just stand up, Natasha, in that bus and make a big noise and shame him? Even someone touching me, for me, is violation. Emotionally, I had to go through that journey of shame, the journey of fear, stepping out of that. And really that incident with that girl's letter brought all this back up to the surface after 10 years for me. And I realized that, that response that I had around that bus was a trauma response, because I had been molested when I was 9 years old by a friend of the family.
Mm.
And again, I have not been able to talk about it. There was no one to tell. No one was there to listen. There was no support. Coming out in public was a big step for me, because that was when I realized that, hold on, I'm carrying shame that's not my shame. Why am I ashamed that someone's touched me? The man who's touched me should be ashamed.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there were people who said to me, well, yeah, okay, he touched you, but that was not such a big deal.
I remember that. And you backed off again. You said, okay, until today. Now I'm hearing this story. It took 4 or 5 years.
It took me a long time to realize that, hold on a minute. Yes, it may just have been a touch, but it was not allowed. So it was a really confronting moment in my life.
In a general feeling, this is so important what you're doing, Natasha. So thank you again. And again, you are telling the truth. And I have checked it from every single place. For 4 years, I have went like Sherlock Holmes for 4 years. I checked every single story. There were like 6 stories came to me. And 7th was yours. And I have audio messages, what he had done to women. So
and unfortunately, those women, because of the backlash that the society gives them for speaking their truth, those women have gone underground again. They were not able to come out and tell their story because they were afraid. They were afraid that the entire media industry would cut them off and they would not get work.
They have a broken spirit now.
And this is 100%, you've hit the nail on the head, that we have a lot of traumatized people that have gone through this. In Pakistan, later teenage years, and as I grew into an adult and I started sharing my childhood story with some of my friends, I realized that everyone had a story. It was their Molvi teacher, maid, tuition teacher, like you name it, everyone, like an uncle in the family. Even one of my friends even told me about her grandfather. And she was never able to tell anyone in the family about it. Most parents don't even want to talk or think about their sons being molested or raped. These traumas, this shame is passed down from generation to generation.
Absolutely.
And this brokenness, this broken spirit that you just talked about, is perpetuating the society.
This trauma, if it's not healed, it just keeps on opening up like a volcano and only talking. This podcast is so critical. I'm telling you, every time you talk, I get such a interesting feeling I can't explain that I never got to therapy. When people talk and you know them and you know they went through the same thing, something happens in the brain and it tells you, okay, you're not alone. First of all, you're not alone in this, and people will trust you. There are people who trust you, and you have to stand for them also, because he's also broken up. So the whole system is feeding itself now
Yeah.
and bigger and becoming a bigger beast.
Yeah. I think, I'm really, really grateful to you for giving me that opportunity to speak my truth, to shine the light as an example, to stand up for a woman who you didn't know, to stand up for the truth, and, to stand in your integrity. I want to thank you, because that propelled me to go down the rabbit hole of my own healing journey and come to a place where I can stand up strong and say yes. And now I'm willing to stand up. And I have actually stood up and told my family about it. Yes, this happened to me. It's not my story. I'm not a victim. But it's not broken me. It's made me stronger. Today I can stand up here and I can host a podcast and talk openly about someone touching my breast in Pakistan, and someone molesting me when I was 9 years old, because it's not my shame. I am not ashamed. My sexuality has now become my strength. It has become my voice. And the point of doing this podcast was not only to highlight these shadows in Pakistan, because these shadows exist everywhere, but it is to give people, women, men, a platform to speak your truth. We're doing it for ourselves. I was not speaking my truth for anybody. I realized it was actually something I needed to take out of my system. Release it. Give it to God. Forgive myself. There's no shame. And it was not my fault when I was 9. It was not my fault when I was sitting in a bus if a man is trying to deliberately force his way to touch me. And it was not your fault. And no matter what anybody will say, because they cannot understand trauma and they cannot understand speaking your truth, So people want to shut you down when you come out and say it.
Absolutely. And there's Noor coming out, it's not dark anymore. So that is very interesting. Natasha is super, super proud actually. Super proud of you guys.
Because only the trauma only affected my subconscious mind. And then my subconscious mind obviously created these different defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms. But the spirit is always whole. The spirit is never broken. Deep down, our soul is whole. And that is what I love to encourage people to remember, to come back into remembering you are whole. You are such a divine being. God loves you. He created you with so much love. Don't let anyone touch you, and be quiet about it. If it bothered you, come out and speak about it. You will help yourself, but you might inspire someone else to speak their truth. And if we all spoke our truth, imagine how much light there'd be in this world. So I just want to thank you. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for being the light in my life. Thank you for being an inspiration. And thank you for being on this show for me to share my story, Jami.
Natasha, again, thank you. But I will just say in a way that, of course, you came, you're still standing, you're the only proper witness, and you're still standing, and that really matters. But the most important part is this podcast, and before the podcast, and this podcast, and after it, that I've learned something about how the spirit works, and that is the key for every person who keeps listening to this and the future podcasts. That how to handle your broken spirit and how to heal. And that was a very random thought in my head before I met you. We all talk about healing. Okay, how? Give us tools to heal. Tell me. Give me a glue. okay, something. No, they just talk and they say things, random things. But now I am focused on spirit. Is so critical. So thank you for that. That even like in our filmmaking world, we need a log line for a whole feature film. Now I have my log line, my thematic statement. Heal the spirit, yourself and everybody. So this podcast will, inshallah, heal everybody.
Amazing. Thank you. And I hope that's all I can wish for, that people find themselves, find their spirits, and find a way to heal. Community is really important at the moment. If it wasn't for this community that I found in Jami to support me, to tell me that he believed my story, to tell me that he believed me, for me to believe him, was exceptionally important for us to still be standing here today. So tune in to our next episode in 2 weeks, where Jami will bear it all, telling us how he took on Pakistan's own Weinstein and is still fighting court battles for it. Thank you for tuning in. If you have a story to share or a question to ask myself or Jami, write to me at spiritandsexuality@gmail.com, or you can visit the website and sign up to the newsletter. The website is sexesociety.com. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening, night, morning, wherever you are tuning in from. Thank you.